MPH Sports Podcast. Talk sport and property with sports people discussing their careers and how property played a part in it.
Scott Dann, welcome to Talk Sport and Property. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
Yeah, well, I should be saying how you doing, partner, because for those that do not know, you're actually a business partner of mine at MPH Sports.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you pleased with things, how they're progressing, boss?
Yeah, you're not doing too well up to now, mate.
We're giving it a go, aren't we? But I was preparing this earlier. I just remembered that it was our first year anniversary only last month. Have you prepared anything nice for us for after lockdown? I'm assuming that big pause is no.
I suppose I can ask you the same question, can't I?
Well, I was thinking, a Novikov or a Hakkasan, one of your two favourite restaurants. I'm a bit of a Hakkasan sort of guy. You're a Novikov. Maybe we could look at something like that, couldn't we?
Yeah, sounds nice, mate. Sounds nice. You've twisted my arm.
All right, mate. That sounds good. Okay, so you're very familiar with the pod. Thank you for coming on. So first half, as you know, we're going to talk about sport. Then we've got some cool little questions we're going to run through. And the second half, we're going to fire into property. So let's talk about your career. Born in Liverpool, 464 career appearances, 238 of these in the Premier League, 38 goals, 161 appearances for Crystal Palace. But you've also played for Coventry, Birmingham, Blackburn, but it all started at Walsall. What age did you join the academy, Scott? And were you offered a professional contract quite early?
As a young lad, through the school years, I wasn't in any academy, didn't play for anyone up until the age of 16, just playing for the school team, local Sunday league club. And it wasn't until a scout wanted to take me on some trials, Liverpool, Everton, Wigan, a few more. And he said that Walsall wanted to take a look at me first. So we went up there on a Saturday afternoon. I played one game and they offered me a contract there and then and said, if you don't go to any of these other trials, there's a contract here for you. So,
wow.
No academy experience, but straight into, the YTS.
When you said we, was that you and your parents or you and your dad or you and your brother or?
As in travelling up to the...
Yeah.
In fact, it was just me and the scout.
Right.
Scout had been watching me for a while. Approached my dad at one of the games and said, I'd like to take Scott up to Walsall before he goes on these other trials, which people would like to take him on. And yeah, I suppose the rest is history from there.
Well, look, during your first 2 seasons as a young teenage pro at Walsall, you were sent out on loan to obviously get some first team experience. You went to Denmark. So was that a valuable experience for you? And I mean, for someone so young, did you go alone?
I did, actually. I think I was maybe just 17 at the time of the loan. I think the two owners of the club were good friends. I got straight into the youth team, but I was also playing a lot of reserve games straight away. So I suppose the next step was to get some first team games. That opportunity come and they offered the chance to go there to me, and I just said, yeah, why not? I'd moved away from home when I was 16, 12, 18 months down the line. It was another challenge, and I thought, let's go and see what it's like over there.
You came back to Walsall, and whilst having those 2 further loan moves at Conference Side North, Redditch and Hednesford, you were then invited to join the first team, where you made a really immediate impression during the end of that season. Was it quite evident that those 3 loan moves really helped you develop into the first team?
I think so. I'd made a lot of appearances in the youth team and in the reserves over the first 12, 18 months. And the next step was playing against men. I probably wasn't fully filled out at that stage. And I just took it as a challenge, really. A lot of people don't tend to go out on too many loans, and I suppose it could have been looked at in terms of the clubs I was going to as, you know, too big a step down. But I was keen to play games, and they were the only opportunities there at the time. And yeah, I just thought let's go out and see what it's all about.
Your performances helped Walsall get promoted as League Two champions that year, and you were also rewarded with a new 3-year deal. The club were clearly aware that they had a talented player like you on their hands. Was you aware of other interests that were coming from other clubs, and why did you sign that 3-year deal?
I think at the time, you know, I was just concentrating on playing. You know, and I was playing a lot of games. I was doing well. There was talk of other clubs being interested. But at the time, you know, that wasn't first thought in my mind. Was just, you know, play on a Saturday, keep improving, and yeah, the club, you know, decided to offer me that contract. Probably looking back, knowing that it was an opportunity to sell me on, potentially coming up fairly soon. At that time, that's not something, you know, I actually thought about. It was just a case of, you know, you're doing well. This is the next step, and not too long after that, you know, that's when I actually did move on.
Yeah, no, you did. I mean, obviously your performances in League One were equally impressive, and you signed for Championship side Coventry City in a fee in excess of £1 million. I mean, £1 million back in 2008 for someone so young. I mean, that was a huge amount of money. I mean, did you feel that you were ready for that next level up, and did the price tag affect you? I mean, clearly it didn't, but did you ever think about that?
Did you say 2008? Seems a long time. It seems a long time ago, that.
Yeah, 2008.
I think, like I said, at the time, being a young lad, not really coming through any academies, it all seems to be happening. You know, the kind of the next stages seem to be happening faster than what I potentially thought they would. So it was just a case of, okay, this is the next step. Let's go and let's take it. And yeah, no, I didn't really think about the price tag or nothing like that. And thinking back, you know, going from Walsall to Coventry for £1 million, it probably was a lot at that time, being a defender. Obviously, they seen something in me, and I think it was the manager was Ian Dowie at the time, albeit he only lasted a few games before he lost his job. But it was like I say, it was the next step for me, and yeah, no, I enjoyed it.
Well, you were clearly well thought of by the club, Scott. I mean, obviously the club made you club captain at the time. Was captaincy something that was quite natural to you?
I think so. I think being a captain is not something I've ever set out to want to
achieve.
You know, it probably comes quite natural in terms of my personality and stuff. And you know, being, you know, even at a young age, I was always captain. Every club I've played for, looking back, I've always been captain at that club at some stage. So, you know, it was at that time, I think I was 20 when I was at Coventry. New manager come in, Chris Coleman come in, and straight away he was keen to give me that role and responsibility. And you know, I think it was just something that I just tried to take in my stride and didn't think too much of it.
So what sort of roles and responsibilities come to a 20-year-old captain?
You know, it's different at different stages. There's obviously different types of captains. I think, you know, at that stage, my role as captain was more coming from, you know, obviously being a leader and trying to, you know, help your teammates out. More performance, I think, more performance related. You know, being a captain, I think you have to be consistent. You know, if you're the captain and you're not a consistent performer, you know, the other players are going to probably turn around and look at you and say, well, you know, you need to do your job before you just start telling me how to do that. So a 20-year-old captain, it was more. I think it was more about the performance aspect and what he's seen in me as a player. You know, not just the other roles will come with it.
Well, once again, your ability wasn't going unnoticed, Scott. I mean, this time you were called up to represent your country under 21 level, making your debut against Poland at the Molineux. I mean, that must have been an amazing achievement for you and your family.
Yeah, it was. Thinking back, there was talk of me potentially before I went to Coventry, when I was at Walsall, getting into the squad. And at the time, looking back, there was a lot of players who've gone on to play a lot of Premier League games. So I was at Walsall in League One at the time, potentially getting in the England under 21 squad. At that stage, it didn't really happen that often. So I think as soon as I'd gone to Coventry, I think that was when kind of said, right, we're going to give him a chance. And yeah, it was a proud moment and something I look back on and as a good, a really good achievement.
Well, you helped Coventry avoid relegation, but it seemed like you were destined for the Premier League with clubs chasing your signature, because on the 12th of June 2009, you decided to sign for Birmingham City for a club record fee in excess of 3.5 million. I mean, that must have been such an exciting move, but could you also explain the story as you remember it?
How long have you got?
It's your pod.
It was a strange one, to be honest, because at the time, I'd just had a minor knee operation at Coventry. And to be honest, even though I knew there was teams interested, I wasn't expecting to leave. I didn't think Coventry would want to let me go so soon. I know Chris Coleman didn't really want me to go. He wanted, to start to be able to build a team that could challenge to get promoted. It was just a phone call one day from Chris, and he said, Scott, the club have agreed a fee with both Birmingham and Wolves. So I turned to my mate and said, okay, well, what do I do now? I wasn't really expecting it. I ended up signing for Birmingham. I was going on holiday the next day, actually, with my missus, Jess, as you know, at the time. To be honest, I was at that stage, because I was just focused on getting to the Premier League. I wasn't too fussed on which team I signed for. And I was going on holiday the next day, and I said, okay, well, let's get it done so we can go away. I said to my agent, I'm not too fussed. Let's see what happens. So long story short, I was halfway through doing a medical with one team, and then I started the medical with the other team, and it was back and forth. And then I think they were, the clubs hit a stumbling block with Wolves, and I ended up signing for Birmingham, which thankfully was a successful move for me.
Yeah, it's funny because we've never had that conversation. After a minor injury, you made your belated Premier League debut on the 19th of September, away to Hull in a 1-0 victory. Clean sheet on your debut. Couldn't have gone much better than that, could it?
No, yeah, it was. I can remember that day, Premier League debut away. It was a tough game, very close, and then I think we nicked it just at the end. Obviously, really nice to keep a clean sheet. I think remembering back, I wasn't fully fit at the time. I was probably about 2 weeks away from being right. As I said, I signed having a minor operation, and the manager said to me, "Right, Scott, you're in." I was like, "Okay, but I haven't trained yet." He said, "Well, do you feel okay?" I said, "Yeah, not too bad." He said, "Okay, you're in." So, it was kind of thrust upon me a little bit earlier than what I expected, but to go straight in and get a clean sheet and get the win was enjoyable.
You were part of a side that went on a 15-game unbeaten run, a new club record for Birmingham City, helping the club remain in the Premier League, finishing an impressive 9th place in the table. I mean, that was the club's best position for over 50 years. I mean, what was the vibe at the club like, and how were you feeling about your personal performances?
Yeah, it was a great time. Looking back, it was one of the most enjoyable times of my career. It was a great club, great set of teammates, good manager, and the fans were great as well. And I think it was, that 15-game run, I think at the time, we never changed. I don't think we changed the team once. We had such a small squad. It was, good experienced players, obviously young players at the time, like myself. And it was such a tight-knit group that, once you get on that run, it's an enjoyable roller coaster, and it's something that is really difficult to do, especially in the Premier League, going 15 games unbeaten. You don't see the top teams doing that very often. So it was, it was a good achievement.
I mean, the following season, you ended up missing the final 4 months due to a hamstring injury, which actually led to obviously the club being relegated. Do you feel that if you would have avoided injury, you may have helped keep them up?
I think going back to that, touching on that previous year, and me saying it was, it was such a small squad. We never changed the team very often. As soon as we picked up, I think we were going really well in the league at the time, halfway had a really good total, going well in the Carling Cup in the semi-final. I think I got injured away to West Ham, and there was another couple of injuries. So we had 2 or 3 big injuries at the same time, which, looking back, did cost us that form that, we had the previous season. So, I'd like to think that if we did keep, not just myself, but the other lads fit, even for a small portion in them games, we would have stayed up. Obviously, we went on to win the Carling Cup that year also. I missed that one in the final, which was, obviously great to win, but difficult to watch when you played every game leading up to it.
With Birmingham relegated to the Championship, you signed for your old commentary manager, Steve Kean at Blackburn Rovers, in a deal in the region around sort of $6 million. I mean, this must have been a great move for you. I mean, I know obviously as a Liverpudlian to go back up north, playing under a manager that you clearly thrive under Coventry. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, that move come about as on the previous injury at Birmingham, which left me out for 4 months. At the time, there was a couple of big teams, higher up the table, who were really interested in taking me, and even with the injury, the moves were, still really close to happening. And last week,
sorry to interrupt. Can you explain a bit more about that?
So, I was close to joining one of potentially 2 top clubs in the Premier League. With that injury, they weren't 100% sure at the time that I was going to come back at the level that they expected me to hit the ground running. So that put in the end, it put the blockers on the move, which, looking back, obviously you're disappointed that you've missed out on that opportunity. But at the same time, it probably did take me an extra few months to get back fully fit. So, probably the decision was warranted. Then obviously Blackburn come about because Steve Kean was the assistant manager at Coventry, and Birmingham was still really needing to sell me because they needed the cash from being relegated. So it was a case of, I haven't got the move that I was potentially going to get. Do I wait and see what happens, or do I go and play for a team who've been in the Premier League for a long time with a manager who I know well? So, I decided to go there. The plan was to, for them to sign several players, and it wasn't until you get in the door that you realise, there's a lot more going on at Blackburn than, it was a difficult time to be at the club, but it was still 2.5 years I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a really good club, but a lot of turnover in managers at the time, which wasn't the easiest scenario.
Without sounding disrespectful to Blackburn Rovers, the clubs or the fans, can we just take this conversation back to who you legally signed for then?
I'd rather not say, to be honest. No, I'd rather not say. It was close, but it was just a case of the injury was probably a bit too. It was a serious injury. I pulled my hamstring off the bone.
Wow.
So it was. I mean, back then it was serious. Now it seems to happen all the time. So, in different years, it might have been a different story. But no, and it was. I went to Blackburn, with the best intentions. It wasn't a case of I'll just go to Blackburn. I wanted to go there in the end. Steve was a coach who knew me well. Had some really good players there, and we didn't manage to stay up, didn't do well enough to stay up that year.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of other things going on, the fans and the owners, and it was a difficult time, lots and lots of turnover in managers and players. But such a good club, anyone who's played there knows it's a really, really good family club.
Yeah, you've always spoken fondly to me about them, actually. And look, let's be honest. I mean, even though you experienced a difficult time there with the club being relegated, I mean, you stayed with the club for another 2 seasons throughout the Championship. Were there other options to you whilst you were playing in the Championship? Because clearly you've demonstrated your level in the Premier League, but you wanted to stay with Blackburn to almost help them get out of it before you ended up moving on.
Yeah, there was. At the end of the season when we were relegated, there was a number of options to get back to the Premier League. Steve, the manager at the time, wanted me to stay. The club wanted me to stay. And when we were relegated with Birmingham, because I missed the last 4 months of the season, it probably didn't hit as hard as getting relegated the following season. So, once I played all them games, you just signed for a new club. It was kind of something inside me was saying, don't just move on straight away. You owe it to them to try and get them back into the Premier League. And, that's what, we tried the first season, didn't quite, we come up short. And then I moved on, I think, maybe 6 months into the second division in the Championship.
Yeah. Well, you played 98 times for Blackburn Rovers before signing for Premier League side Crystal Palace on a 3.5-year deal. Who was the manager at Palace and how did you feel about coming to London?
At the time, the manager at Palace was Tony Pulis. He was another manager who previously tried to sign me from Birmingham. I mean, a couple of times, I think, when he was at Stoke. I think, he was someone who knew what I was capable of, wanted me to come there and showed that he had that belief in me to come back into the Premier League. And it was, at that time I was ready for, to go again and prove myself as a Premier League defender. Yeah.
Well, I think it was clearly the right decision. Obviously, in the first year, you've won Player of the Year in your first season, followed by the Fans Player of the Year the following season. The club then rewarded you with an improved 5-year deal, which has kept you at the club as of today. Scott, what does it take to be a Premier League footballer for as long as you have? What sacrifices do you have to make to maintain that level?
Everyone knows it's not easy to get to that level in, first and foremost. But I think, to have the longevity there, it's the performance is a key, obviously, but the hard work, the dedication, the focus, and then more than anything, which I realised probably over the last 3 years of being at Palace, the mentality and the mental strength, because when it's all going well as a footballer and you're playing every game and you're one of the first names on the team sheet and you're playing week in, week out, everything feels good. And then I think I had a big injury to my knee. I was out for 9 months. In that time, other people come into the team, and then that was kind of the first stage of my career where I had little spells on the substitutes bench, and I think to then go on and get myself back into the team, and then year after year since then, I found myself playing 5 or 6 games, and then I've been on the bench for 5 or 6 games, maybe 2 months at a time. But I think the mentality to make sure you're always ready to perform when you're called upon, because it's easy to take your foot off the gas when suppose you're not in the team, and you can look for other people to blame. But if you're ready to, if the manager turns around and say, right, Scott, you're in, you need to be ready to perform, otherwise you don't get another chance. No. So I think the mentality is one of the biggest things of being in the league for a long time.
Yeah, I must be honest, your attitude towards sport, life, business is very plaudable. You're a very positive inspiration to a lot of people around you. And I can say from a personal experience, I know we've known each other for a few years now, but I enjoy our conversations on the way to training, and I go into work so upbeat. I can see why so many managers have asked you to captain the side, because I think you're a fantastic role model for others around you, Scott. So listen, I think that's a perfect way to sort of end the first half of the pod, mate. But we do have a quick question fire round. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
So if you wasn't playing for Crystal Palace, who would you like to play for and why?
That's an easy one. I'd like to play for Liverpool. I grew up a Liverpool fan, going to the games all the time with my dad. So yeah, that would be the one and only other team I would choose.
Fair enough.
Not Chelsea.
I was so hoping for that. Who would be the one centre back you wish you could partner up with?
This will make you happy then. It would have to be, there's a number who I've watched throughout my career and aspired to kind of build your game on. But John Terry would be the one who I would say I would have most liked to play alongside.
There we go. He's back in the good books again. Yeah. Would you like to coach or manage one day? Still undecided. Mm-hmm. I think I'm leaning more towards not doing that, just for the simple fact of being able to, I know the dedication it takes to, and the sacrifices away from your family it takes to be a footballer. So when you go into coaching, it's even more time consuming. So I think, I don't probably want to spend more time with the family and kids. So I think I'm undecided, but I'm leaning more towards the and also more time with us here at MPH Sports, right? Obviously. Best forward you have played against? I think I know the answer to this one, but there's a few. There's been a few. Yeah, I think there's a few I could say, but I think the one who comes into my head the most would be Didier Drogba. And I think that was when he first come over, signed for Chelsea. I remember playing against him. I was at Coventry at the time, and he could do everything. He was strong, quick, good in the air, good with his feet. There was nothing he couldn't do. Obviously, he went on to be an unbelievable player for Chelsea. I would say he's the best striker I've played against. Yeah, what a player, wasn't he? With Luis Suarez, probably second, close behind. Okay. Best player you have played with? It's a difficult one. I think I've played with a lot of good players, obviously different positions. I think in terms of, natural ability and someone who can, change a game in a second, I'd have to say Wilfred Zaha. Yeah, Audie said the same when he was on the pod a few weeks ago. Yeah, I think people see what he can do in on the TV and watching us play, but there's a lot more in there. So yeah, I would say Wilf. Okay, your best career highlight, Scott, because we've not really discussed the times at Wembley or things like that. No, I think I can't say playing an FA Cup final because we lost. So I remember coming off. I come off in the 90th minute. I'd injured my ankle, didn't want to come off, and it was 1-1, and the rest is a play. So that was something I being a youngster I always wanted to do, growing up on the FA Cup. But it would have to be scoring the winner at Anfield for Palace about 4 years ago, maybe. Really? I'll have to find that on YouTube later. A career regret? I don't have any. I'm not the type of person to regret anything. No. I always, if I make a decision, it's right or wrong, I just try and get on with it. I don't regret anything really. It's a good enough answer for me. Which golf club are you a member of? At the moment, I'm a member of the Wisley in Surrey, soon to be changing. Yes, and that is my next question. And which golf course are we now signing up to? This is a loaded question. You can put an invite. The courses are opening next week. I'm getting excited. I'll have to see first if I'm accepted before you put this out. Okay. I'm just about to join Beaverbrook, which is more local. Wonderful. Now, you own a few businesses, which we're going to talk about in the next section of the pod. But if you could pick a favourite one, which one's your favourite business to be part of, Scott? This is an awkward question, isn't it? It's not that I've teed this up purposely or anything.
MPH, obviously.
And that's the perfect way to finish the first half.
Talk Sport and Property Podcast, sponsored by MPH Sports Property Academy. Download the app today from the App Store or Google Play by typing in MPH Sports, the trusted go-to app for sports people looking to buy or learn about property.
Welcome back, mate. Okay, so look, you're from Liverpool, signed for Walsall as a teenager. Where did you stay when you came down south from Liverpool?
I stayed originally for the first two, 3 years in some digs with a lovely man and woman who looked after me. I can remember my mum and dad dropping me off. I can still remember my mum crying now at 16.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they looked after me well. That was just a local area in Walsall.
Okay. So look, following moves to Coventry and Birmingham, did you end up buying your first home in the Midlands then?
Yeah, so I rented, I think the last 12 months at Walsall, I rented in Birmingham town centre and then moved to Coventry and bought an apartment in Coventry at the time in a place called Walsall Common, which was kind of in between Coventry and Birmingham. Easy access to the motorway to get back.
Yeah.
Get back up to Liverpool.
Did Jess move with you?
So I bought that by myself. I was by myself at the time, and then Jess moved in probably 6 months after that.
Okay. So when you moved to Blackburn, did you keep the house or did you sell in Birmingham?
So, I was fortunate going from Coventry to Birmingham that it was kind of perfectly, in the middle, so I didn't have to move again. So spent a couple of years there when I was at Coventry, Birmingham, moved up north and kept hold of it and rented it out.
And do you still own it now?
No, I sold it a few years ago now.
Okay. And what did you do when you moved to Blackburn? Did you move to, I think you bought a house in Cheshire, didn't you?
Yeah, so we rented for the first 6 months, just while we were trying to find somewhere, really. And then we found a house in Knutsford. We don't own anymore, but it was, looking back, wasn't a house that we needed at the time, no family. Probably something I look back and think, I wouldn't have done if I knew what I know now.
The thing is that Knutsford and that part of Cheshire, it's so competitive, isn't it? I think a lot of the footballers, sports people tend to move into that area. Did you find that process quite enjoyable or stressful? And how much of a move like that has an impact on your performance, or can you allow that sort of process affect your performance on the pitch?
So at the time, me and Jess, obviously, we moved from the Midlands. We wanted to be close enough to our family.
Yeah.
Obviously, we wanted, I needed to be on the motorway to get access to Blackburn. So it was a perfect location, nice area to live. We probably at the time, we didn't know too much ourselves in terms of how to go to buy a house at that sort of level. Obviously new to the area, agents, speaking to different agents. It wasn't an easy task, and when you move to a new club, you want to settle fairly quick.
Yeah.
And I think we enjoyed our time there, and it ended up being a good investment as well. But that was more through luck than judgment. So
did Jess just take complete control of the situation like she does with most of your life, or did someone at Blackburn, did they support you as a player liaison to try and put you in touch with the right estate agents? Say, look, these are the areas that you should be focused on. I know you would have had some sort of area knowledge at the time.
No, so that's the thing, which I'm sure we'll get onto shortly. There was a player liaison at the time, but in terms of having help from the football club to find that place, it just wasn't there.
Right.
It was me on my own back. My agent at the time was helping me with that situation, but it was something that me and Jess were having to do. I'd go to train and come back. We'd go and view houses, and after 3 or 4 times doing that, it gets a bit monotonous, and you kind of over it, because the the help wasn't there. So you find yourself kind of looking at things you don't really want because you're forced into making decisions.
Yeah. We're going to talk about your appetite for property because I know you've got a passion for it, which we'll talk about in a sec. But when did you first discover that you did have this appetite to build a property portfolio?
My love for property was, I think that was a young age. I always thought that at some stage, when I was able to, I would get involved, whether that be, to have a property portfolio to either buy, renovate and flip, or to buy and hold for future investments. It wasn't until as time passes and you understand it a lot more, that was more the love side of it. As you understand it more and you understand that, the right paths to go down, that's when you get more intrigued and you learn more along the way, and then you can start making better decisions.
Do you mind me asking how many properties that you have now and where are they based?
Yeah, so I have, I think off the top of my head, around 20 properties.
Yeah. And are they based generally northwest?
Yeah, they're based generally northwest, and that was more at the time when I bought them. It was through a guy who I knew local to the area. Obviously, I weren't living in Liverpool or around that area at the time, and I always thought that if I could, if there was anything needing doing in the, to any of them, I had family who I could pick up the phone to and say, can you address the situation?
So it was like a property sourcer that you had that was trying to just discover these sorts of properties for you. I mean, knowing what you now know about property, and it's a bit of life experience around it really, because you've got so much more knowledge about property now than you would have maybe 10 years ago. Would you buy those again now?
Definitely not. I would definitely do the same thing. It's not like I haven't made bad investments with them. In fact, they've been, they've returned good money over the years. The yield is quite good. But I suppose in comparison to the stuff that, we look at MPH for clients and ourselves, there's a difference in kind of standards, and there's a lot more thought process that goes on behind it, and to try and, cut out any mistakes along the way. So I would definitely buy again at that stage, but I would buy, the way we buy.
Yeah. So I know this is a question that I didn't prepare you for, but it's been clear of recently that our head of operations, Hannah, has taken on your portfolio, hasn't she? And because I'm here, what feels like about 20 hours a day, I've experienced some of the problems that she's had to pick up for you. Is it safe to say that sports people don't really want to become landlords, they just want to become investors? And the reason why I'm saying this is because you can probably see it's ball behind us, and you may or may not know, but on the evidence of how we've almost cleaned up your portfolio, because we have cleaned it up, haven't we? That you've had properties that, let's be honest, you didn't even know that were not let. So we've made sure that we've fulfilled your maximum rent. We've got them all let. We've got all the right certificates in. We've centralised the agent. We've got all your terms and conditions all nice and clean. But we want to now do this for all sports people because we've seen how successful it's been with yours. Do you think that other players like you just want to become investors? They don't want to become a landlord. They don't want to deal with the agent. They don't want to deal with arranging all the certificates or having any form of dialogue with the agent. They simply want to park their money and see their money grow for them.
100%. I think, a lot of sports people like the thought of getting into property, see it as a good place to park their money for, future, for the future, and get it and make a good return on their investment. I think, I'm a prime example, which is one of the reasons why, I decided to come on board. I'm a prime example of someone who really enjoys and wants to be involved in property through various other things, doesn't have the time, doesn't want the hassle, so straight away, you would prefer to be an investor rather than dealing with them issues day in, day out, because, you know, they do come, and people like myself, who I like to think I'm on top of most things, they get pushed to the back of the queue because you don't want them hassles, whereas, you know, come at it from, you know, wanting to be an investor rather than dealing with them issues. It's a lot cleaner, but the returns are still there.
I agree. One of the reasons I wanted you to be part of this business is because you demonstrated to me how much passion you have and knowledge you have for business generally. So when you came to me about investing in MPH Sports, I was equally excited about you coming on board because I felt you would complement the business in other ways than money. What was it about MPH Sports that you wanted to get involved with?
So obviously we've met previously. I think you were looking at properties for me to buy. Straight away, I've been around a lot of people in property who, you know, say they can do things and don't generally come through. You were probably the only person who's ever said, okay, you want properties here, I'm going to go and find you them, and actually gone out and spent days, not just hours, days, travel the country. So first and foremost, me getting on board was, you know, it has to be the right person. Obviously, I've got the passion for property. I wanted to be involved. I seen what you were doing, you know, don't want to make your head swell, but, you know, the person looking after athletes is so important, and that was probably the last piece of the jigsaw. Is, you know, being a professional footballer and sportsman, I know how many people want to be involved in property, don't have the guidance, don't have the knowledge, don't get pushed in the right direction to the right people. There's not enough people out there to, you know, who are trustworthy. So it was me coming on board was kind of me thinking, well, if I can bridge that gap and be a trustworthy person who can vet, you know, what's going on inside our business in comparison to everybody else. And, you know, from the chats we've had, you know, it's honest and open, and you have to, with athletes, because it has to be hands off, because you want them to concentrate on the football. Everything needs to be upfront, needs the right people, you know, doing the process. And trust's a big thing in our game, and, you know, it's hard to find that. So obviously getting involved with you and El, you know, it's part of the process, but knowing that the opportunity for athletes is there, given, you know, the right people are involved.
Now, well, thank you for confirming those very nice complimentary words there, Scott. You mentioned knowledge and trust and education, and you know how passionate I am about the workshops that I do at sports clubs. Did you ever get any education at any of the clubs that you've played for around property?
No. You know, the simple answer is no, I didn't. Whether that be, you know, buying your first home or things you should look out for,
right.
Bonds, nothing to do with the investment side of it. You know, it's not there. And if it is there, it's not there to the level that it needs to be.
Yeah, because I think that we've discussed this in the past, and I've highlighted this on the pod previously, but it does appear that the education in sport, I feel, up to under 23 level is unbelievable. I feel the programs they put on and the research that the Premier League put in place, I think is fantastic. But it does appear that at whatever age, the moment you start playing for a Premier League club in the Premier League first team, it goes from education to player liaison, doesn't it? And you've got a fantastic player liaison in Danny at the club, who I've personally met and spoken to previously. But it's a huge responsibility for player liaison to take on everything for such a big squad. And I think that if we can do more and work with more player liaisons like Danny and support a player come and settle in and handle that transition into the club by helping them find a property, even if it's just temporary, I think it will help their performance on the pitch. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. And I think there are, you know, the Premier League and other places do, you know, for the younger people, there are workshops and stuff that go on. That's probably at the stage of the career where, yeah, it's important, but they don't necessarily, you know, have the money until they get to the next stage. And that's when it becomes more important, because that's when they can actually make the decisions. And I think once you make that jump from there to the first team, that's when it's just you're straight in, and there's no one to kind of hold your hand, I suppose. The player liaisons, like you say, they do all they can, but there's 20, 30 players. There's only so much they can do.
Yeah,
and that's not necessarily their skill set to the property side.
No, I agree. I mean, Scott, how important is it, in your opinion, for elite sports professionals like yourself to invest in, property businesses and also just in themselves?
I think it's huge. I think, fortunately, I've been able to have a really good career in the sport. But some people's careers are cut short. You don't know, after one contract finishes, you don't know when the next one starts or what type of money you go from to earn. And so it's such a short career. So to make them, whether it's properties or businesses, one thing is make investments. So once you finish your playing career, you've got that salary and income, and you're not having to sell assets, and if you struggle to get a job afterwards as such. And another is, if you get involved in businesses that you enjoy and you've got a passion for, and you think you can add value, that they could be your next career after football, because football careers are short. So I think that's part of the reason why I do it, and it's something that, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, I've done more and more. It's put me in a really good position.
So where would you recommend a player who enjoys business like you do go study or prepare for life after football?
From my own personal experience, I think it's putting yourself, taking yourself out of your comfort zone. Not necessarily, there's obviously places you can go and learn online. There's a lot of online learning and courses and things like that. But I think the main lesson I've learned is take yourself out of your comfort zone, meet new people in areas that you want to get involved in, and learn from them along the way, whether that be in the finance aspect of things or other different, get yourself out there, because I think footballers in general stick to what they know. Go to training, you come home, you live your pretty normal life. Once that finishes, there's a whole world out there. Once you get out there and learn off people who are the best at what they do, it takes time to do that. It's took me 5 or 6 years, but now I'm in a position where I feel I'm a lot more ready to go into the next stage of my life and my career, because I've allowed myself to go and learn off these people who are at the top of their games. We're at the top of our game in our sport and our job, but learning off the people in the top of their game in business, in that sector, that's where I've found the most value.
I think that's fantastic advice, Scott. I really do. I mean, this was the reason really why we also built the academy, wasn't it? The property academy. And this is the reason why you and I have taken the barn next door as well, which we know we've got to renovate sort of during Q4 this year, and we'll get it open and ready for next year. But it's about pulling in other sports people that have a passion for life, passion for property, that wants to learn, so we can teach them to become better buyers. I know we do it online at the moment, but it's when we can bring in specialist people that can discuss and teach different strategies and share more knowledge about what they can do with their career and their wealth. I think it's just all a combination of making them prepare better for one day they're not kicking the ball around. So I think that advice is fantastic. Your wealth manager, who I met recently, described you as an entrepreneur, which I would have to partly agree with. Would you say the same? And what is it about business that excites you?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've kind of grown into, and I don't get me wrong, football is my main focus. But as soon as I come away from there, over the most recent years, I've got involved in a lot of different things, and it's not until you start to do that you realise, you enjoy other things away from football, and you can actually add value to other businesses or to other people. And I think it has to be a business or something that I feel as if I can personally add value to. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel like there's a space for me. The people, the right people, that makes up a big part. And just the knowing that there's an opportunity there and being able to take it from, say, a thought to actually put it into practice, and the hard work and the time, like we've done with MPH, the amount of hours and calls and work that goes into getting it from what we say to where it goes, and then delivering it to the clients. That's something I enjoy. I enjoy that type of process.
So have you got any more ideas for or any more businesses that you and I can explore and invest in yet?
I think it's your turn.
Well, listen, Scott, you have been absolutely amazing. Thank you for coming on the pod. I know we're pushing you for time because you've got to go and pick up the kids from school. So listen, I'm going to love and leave you. I just want to say publicly, listen, thanks for having that trust and belief in everything that we've ever set out to achieve. I think we've had a phenomenal first year, some exciting times ahead, and we'll discuss all this on the golf course as soon as we can get out there.
Thanks, mate.
All right, mate.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Cheers, mate. Catch you later.
Bye, mate. Bye.
You've been listening to Talk Sport and Property. Visit the App Store and download the MPH Sports app today, or keep up with us over on Instagram.